Okay, great. Thanks. Ian, can you just move to the next slide for me, and I'll do the introductions. Perfect. Thank you, everybody, for joining the session today. Hope you find it interesting. Just a quick slide here, just to meet the speakers. There'll be three voices you'll be hearing today. The first one is me. I'm Darren Morton from DVW Analytics. Many people ask me about my photograph and the soft focus and where they can get that particular filter from. If you search online for the cataract filter, you'll find it there, and you can look as good as I do. On the right-hand side, also you'll hear Ian James, also from DVW Analytics. Ian will be doing most of the heavy lifting with the demonstrations, and Ian, for some reason, always looks very, very angry, but he's actually quite a nice chap. And front and center here, our special guest star from Altrix, we have Prashant Chamati. Tremont with that hero pose. The only thing he's missing there is the cape. But Prashant has some really cool stuff for you to take a look at later in the session. As we run today, a couple of things to bear in mind. We are recording the session, and anybody who attends the live session today, we're going to link to the replay after the event. And for those of you who listen to this but didn't attend first time around, you'll also get a link to the recording as well. You'll see there is within this application here a little chat frame. Feel free to ask any questions as we go. We'll answer them on the fly, and any we don't answer during the session itself, we'll pick up post event. Okay, Ian, let's go for the next slide. Right, so let's just set some context here in terms of what we're looking at. The topic is AI. The topic is preparing data for use within AI applications. And the topic is also how do we get SAP data into those AI applications. So let's start on the right-hand side of this slide. I think any one of us who's had even superficial access to any of these sort of AI applications, I guess OpenAI and ChatGPT or Microsoft Copilot are probably the ones most folks would have had some experience of. Will recognize that there's mastery in the way you prompt and the way you communicate with these AI applications, but also what's really important is the quality of data that we feed these things in. So many years ago, when I first started working in the SAP community, in the IT community, garbage in, garbage out was a very common mantra, and that still applies today. So how do we make sure that we get the best possible outcome from our use of these different AI applications? So this is where Alteryx, the middle, comes in, and many of you who've registered for the webinar today will already be either working professionally with Alteryx or have some familiarity, with Alteryx. But Alteryx is really a very natural platform for making sure that the data that we feed into these AI applications is of the highest possible quality. We have the ability, of course, to blend and transform that data from various different sources. We have the ability to schedule through server the feeding of data either directly to these AI applications themselves, or in many cases, you'll be pushing data from, say, Alteryx through to one of the various cloud data warehouses on its route to the AI applications themselves. So a critical piece, really, of the, let's say, the modern AI landscape has to be Alteryx. Yeah. On the left-hand side, well, there's lots of sources for the sort of analysis we may want to perform within these AI applications. I'm from DVW Analytics. We're all about SAP data. We love SAP, and we love SAP data, and that doesn't make us sad. It actually makes us very exciting and very interesting people. But within the domain of SAP, we also have different types of data that we may want to work with. There's, of course, a very structured data that you'll probably feel and recognize from the SAP environments, but also in text and messages and long text, these types of things. There's a great deal of unstructured data which could really be tapped usefully by these different AI applications themselves. So essentially here we have our landscape in which we have Altrix as a pivot point in the middle, cleansing, blending, transforming this data, ready to be passed on either directly or via cloud data warehouse to the AI applications that we want to use within organizations. And on the left-hand side, we're going to focus on SAP and DVW, of course, in this webinar, but it could be that we're pulling data from Salesforce.com, it could be Excel, it could be Oracle, and so on and so forth. So just the fact we haven't included any other than SAP there, please don't think that that's not possible within Altrix itself. Next slide, please, Ian. This is the only show slide here, I promise you guys, but just to give you some assurance, Altrix and DVW Analytics have been working together for many years now. We have around 600 mutual customers globally. The key things that all these companies have in common is that they use SAP very extensively within their organizations, and that they also use Altrix to actually help them to understand and process the data, because it's agile, it's easy to use for business user, it's massively flexible, and they also use DVW to provide a conduit between SAP and the Altrix platform to either extract data from SAP into Altrix where we can manipulate it, or also write data back from Altrix into SAP via the DVW software for certain use cases. Next slide, please. All right, so let's think about the SAP landscape. Often we think of one or two core products, but SAP, when I first started, there's R2, very old days, whereas R2, there's one product. Then it became R3, and suddenly there's a proliferation of products out there. There are many of them now. What this slide is doing is highlighting, from our perspective, the most important SAP products out there from let's say, an AI data clearinghouse context. The source systems that are going to be most useful for us when we have particular use cases that involve AI applications. So I'll highlight a couple here. We can read the rest on the slide. I guess the key ones are going to be our core transactional systems, the ERP applications themselves, for which SAP is most well known. Today, we're talking predominantly SAP ECC, where most SAP customers still sit, but increasingly those customers are moving on to old school SAP S/4HANA, which may be an on-premise SAP S/4HANA environment, or more likely some sort of hosted SAP S/4HANA. And more recently, they could be using one of the SAP private cloud or public cloud tenants or instances as well. Right. Over and above the core ERP applications, the good old data warehouse, BW, is still there within SAP itself, along with more modern applications such as the SAP Analytics Cloud. So the offering's very complete here in terms of what SAP offer. They cover pretty much every part of any business you could possibly imagine. Some solutions are used more than others, and others will be more favored, I guess, sources for sort of AI types of use cases than others. But these are the sources that certainly we support as a minimum for use within Altrix. Next slide, please. All right, so if you're currently on SAP S/4HANA or on the partway on the journey to SAP S/4HANA, then you'll be using or become increasingly familiar with this idea of a Fiori app. A Fiori app is effectively the latest-ish front end to SAP. It sort of replaces SAP GUI in the new world. But the nice thing about Fiori is it's very rich. Okay, there are Fiori apps where we input data, transactional data, but there are also Fiori apps where report-like. They deliver output to us in report-like format. Now, there are many thousands of these available as standard in SAP S/4HANA, which is great. Different companies will also enrich, create their own as needed as part of the implementation of the SAP S/4HANA product set. So what this means then is we have a potential candidate here for rich data presented to us in report-like format with all this business logic built into it. So if we can consume these Fiori apps directly within Altrix, that means that through that cleansing process, we're already several steps ahead of the game in getting that data ready for our AI applications. So you'll see more and more of these as you develop further and further along your own paths within your organizations with SAP. And underpinning these different Fiori apps, there are SAP transaction codes, or BW queries, or SAP HANA views, and OData sources. So you're going to find as you hit S/4HANA that Fiori becomes a very rich source of data for you. And here, this last little slide here, what we love about this stuff is all that business logic is baked in. We can consume it directly. We do not have to reposition anything, reposition other things on top of it. It's just there, consume it, maybe blend it with data from other sources before passing on to the AI application of your choice. So Ian, let's go for it.
Okay, thank you. So obviously lots of ways of bringing data in. The first demo we're going to show you is exactly what Darren's just mentioned there around Fiori apps. So the ability to extract data from SAP using those apps and bring it directly into Alteryx ready for that use on those AI applications and agents. So Darren mentioned about how many Fiori apps there are. You can see actually this is the SAP. Read here the reference library for those Fiori apps, and if we look at all of those, you can see up here that 16, nearly 17,000 apps that are ready, pre-baked, ready to use from your HANA system, ready to use there. If we look at one of those apps, then this is, as you can read, is a supplier invoice list, and the way it works is basically we can choose. If you're not familiar with these, we can just parameterize this. Maybe we want to put a year in here, and it will give us the data that we're looking for, which we could download to Excel, we could use elsewhere. It's in a reasonably nice format. The key that Darren mentioned there is that behind this is one of four things: a BW query, a T code, a HANA view, or maybe an OData service. We can connect to all of those. In this case, it's an OData service. So let me show you how we connect and get this exact data over into Alteryx in the most efficient way. For those who are not familiar with it, what you can see on the screen now is the Alteryx Designer. That's the desktop version of Alteryx. It's a data wrangling tool. Alteryx provide, I think it's around about 300, 350 tools. Prashant will correct me later, I'm sure. But you can bring those tools in to build workflows, to manipulate, join, cleanse, and do massive work with your data sets in a very efficient way. What DVW does is it's an add-in into this. It's a piece of software that adds more capability. And as Darren mentioned, we're all about SAP. So if we look at our add-in tools here, then you can see that we can read and write data to and from SAP using different standard objects, if you like, within SAP. And here are those objects that we just talked about, for instance. So we can run transaction codes. We can look at table data. We can look at OData and HANA views, but lots and lots more. Okay, let's start at the beginning then. So imagine you run your Fiori app, that supplier list, and you want to bring that data efficiently into Alteryx, ready for maybe an AI agent that you're going to build down the line. Here's the most efficient way of doing it. We start with a logon, super safe way of connecting to your SAP systems. I have many of them here. So if I pick one of them, let's pick this one, and as you can see, it's got my credentials. Darren will talk to this shortly, but those are my credentials for the SAP system. So all my authorizations are being applied there. I'm logging on. I can ping to check it's there. Always a good sign when you're doing a demo that it is. And then we can choose one of the apps to connect with. So we're going to use an OData service because the particular Fiori app that I'm using uses an OData service, and I can share my credentials with that service. What I can now do is search, and this is searching now my SAP system, and I get effectively that library that I've just shown you from SAP. These are all the active Fiori apps on my system. Of course, it's got search functionality, so let's look for supplier. There are ways and means of finding the right one because there are many different views of supplier data, as you can imagine, within an SAP system. Many, as you can see. The one that actually is being used there is this one right here. Okay, and you can see even within there are different views of the data that we might be interested in. Many of these are the master data, so maybe the supplier texts and master data around supplier and the invoice itself, etc., etc. But it's the middle one here that I'm interested in. The way the tool works now is it brings back the metadata of that particular OData service, which makes it really easy for the user now to see the type of data that's being brought back. And I can choose any of these as my output. So these will be the columns that are in my output. You can see also I can maybe bring in some text if I want, etc., etc. Okay, so I can choose whichever ones of these I'm interested in. That's good because it's flexible, but also it brings back exactly the data I need, no more, no less, so it's efficient too. Another efficiency is that I can filter on any of these. So for instance, I can add a filter on year, say. So if I add a blank filter, then I can add into here the year that I'm interested in. I don't really want to filter on this one, so I managed to bring that across, so I can delete that. So I can filter on the year and get exactly the data. Equally, maybe a particular company code is interesting. So I can add a new filter. If it's maintained on the system, then you can get a list of different company codes that are available. I can choose one or more. Let's just choose one for now. And then that's the two parameters you'll remember that I added over on the Fiori app. All I need now to do is add a browse tool or an output if you like. Browse tool is just a visualization tool if you're not familiar with Alteryx. And now when I run this workflow, it's logging me on. It's running that Fiori app effectively, the OData service behind it, applying the particular filters that I'm interested in and bringing that data out, which you can see displayed here. So straight away, we've got data coming directly from SAP into Alteryx, super efficient way. One nice other feature is that within our app, we also have the ability to control exactly what happens there dynamically. So maybe, hey, I'm only running this for one company code. You saw that happen on the Fiori side. Say I want to run it for more. I can do that very, very easily. So I can copy, say, this filter here. Here's a way to illustrate that. And by pasting it in here, it creates a standard Alteryx text object. You can see that text object there. It's company code equals 1710. That's the company code we said. Well, we want to run it for more company code, so let's put a few more in. And I happen to know a few. They're slightly randomly named, but anyway, not 1,000, it's 100. And was it 7867. So we've got 4 different company codes. Now if I pass those filters in, rather than running for one company code, the tool itself has the ability to understand that I'm passing these in and dynamically filter. So now when I run, instead of running just for one company code, it's going to run for all 4. And in fact, it's going to make 4 separate calls. So if these are really big, chunky calls, that can be broken down into smaller pieces. And you can see that it's pulled out my data immediately. I did do one thing. I should have asked for more data just to prove it. I don't want to spoil the demo there. You can see how quick it is. So let me just run it one more time. And you can see down the bottom here, it's quite small on your screen probably, but 1, 2, 3, 4 times it's run. And when I look in the browse tool, I look at the actual company codes, which I can't see in front of me at the moment for some reason. Of course, they've come out, but anyway, I've got 4 company codes worth of data in there. Okay, back to Darren.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. And I think that last feature there is a key component that we offer through all of our tools, but particularly it's useful around Fiori apps, and as we'll show you later, around T codes, where a particular T code or Fiori app may force you to specify maybe a company code as part of the selection criteria. So the fact that we can chain these things together, it means we can extract very large volumes of data from these apps or T codes in one request. Rather than you having to manually run these reports or T codes, whatever, one by one. Anyway, so when we first started with Altrix some years ago now, the main use case was pure play. We call it pure play analytics. Let's get data out of SAP. It's use the blend-in and transformation data capabilities of Altrix to prepare data before passing that data up to one of the visualization platforms, Power BI, Tableau, where the kind of key use cases are still common, right? In the new world, AI, then the only thing we're changing there really is the endpoint. Yeah, similar sort of thing. As our customers start to become more aware of the capabilities of Altrix and the DVW capability, then we started getting use cases based around process automation, right? So this is maybe something where we're looking to not only pull data from SAP through Altrix, but also write data back into SAP off the back of the execution of an Altrix workflow. And in current world, when we're looking at the big migration of customers from old SAP to new SAP, then data migrations are also perfectly well poised to take advantage of these different technologies. But then we add the AI equation to this, and there's going to surface more and more and more use cases. So I think what's interesting for me is that, I know a lot of people are fearful of AI, and I think quite rightly so, but my goodness, I think in the space that we all work within, as long as we can master what these AI applications can do, I think we're going to be quite well positioned for some time, because the use cases themselves are clearly immense, right? You'll know this. Part of the reason we're on the call is to try to understand, how can I cleanse data to a point where it can be consumed by these AI applications. So we're very sweetly positioned, I think, alongside Altrix in this space. And if you guys are currently using our collective software, then you're also very well positioned to take advantage of this. Next slide, Ian, please. Okay, so this is a topic we also just want to cover briefly in any of our presentations. It's important to understand that we're able to consume and work with very large volumes of data from SAP, hundreds of millions of rows of data are possible. But we operate in a very specific way, so we never interact directly with the underlying SAP database, right? And to be honest, if we did, those 600 joint customers I mentioned in the introduction there would probably be zero customers, frankly. So we work predominantly via the SAP application layer, which is really important because it means that we respect the governance and controls that are built into that SAP system. This means things such as the safety belts, the volume restrictions, the authorizations of a given user are automatically respected by our software. And so the shorthand here is, despite our ability to work with very large volumes of SAP data in a very efficient way within Alteryx, we can do no harm to the SAP system itself. Okay, so that's something I want to assure you guys who are not currently using our software, maybe considering it. So we've talked about Fiori apps. That's great for New World SAP, but what if I'm still running SAP ECC? What if there are certain T codes, for example, that within S/4HANA that haven't been exposed yet as Fiori apps? So T codes are a bit of a game changer for a lot of our customers, particularly our business users who don't really want to understand anything about the SAP data model. They don't care about it. There's a certain T code or ABAP report that if you run that and you can consume the data from that directly in Alteryx, then you're good to go, right? And then you can continue on your journey for building a particular workflow out within Alteryx. So key capability then, alongside a Fiori app capability, is the ability to run those transaction codes, consume all that business logic directly within Alteryx without us having to build anything or code anything at all. Real game changer. Next one, Ian, please. And then another big tool, sort of the flip side, if you like, of our Fiori apps capability and the T-code capability is the table data. Because the table data is where a lot of the good juicy stuff is. If I know a little bit about SAP tables and know where my data resides, then the table data offers us the finest level of granularity we're going to get really within any SAP system. And we have the ability to build workflows based around combining data from these different tables. And our solution is very, very fast. Again, something that if you're pushing data, say maybe to Cloud Data Warehouse in anticipation of your AI activities, it'd be of value to you. Next slide, please, Ian. So we've got Fiori apps, we've got T codes, we've got table data. In amongst that, and I think those different SAP systems I've already mentioned today, there's other things we support, of course, right? So from an AI perspective, I really want to get my hands on some of this descriptive text, that unstructured data, all that commentary about my customers or the dialogue we've had with them that's stored within my SAP system, try to make some sense of that. Well, we have the ability to extract that, identify where it sits within SAP, extract it for a given object, use Altrix to format the data so it's useful to you before we pass it on, again, either to the Cloud Data Warehouse layer or directly to the AI apps themselves. Similar to that is what are attachments? And we've got a use case we'll show you shortly where I have a PDF of an invoice that's attached to a GL posting document in SAP. Wouldn't it be great if I could actually automatically identify where those PDFs are for a range of accounting documents, extract the data from those PDFs using maybe some of the computer vision capabilities that Altrix offers, and then parallel alongside that, extract the related data that's physically posted into the SAP system, then reconcile the two things together again. That's a bit of a game changer, and again, utilizing certain AI types of capabilities. Over and above that, we can extract data via BAPIs, archive data. There's got to be a lot of good stuff there tucked away for you to mine and to work with. And also we work with SAP Analytics Cloud. So there's not really any objects within your core SAP systems that we can't get access to in some way, shape, or form. Next one, please, Ian. And so a prelude then into the next demonstration is a couple of years ago, I first saw a demonstration of Altrix Auto Insights. It's quite jaw-dropping actually when you first see that product. It's my first real experience of sort of an AI type application, consuming data that we fed to it from SAP with virtually no human intervention at all. So let's consider a scenario here where we're using two of Altrix's components, let's say Altrix Design on the desktop or server, alongside Altrix Auto Insights, and we want to analyze some of our sales and distribution data. How do we go about doing that? And Ian's going to show us a demonstration of that now.
Okay, yeah, thanks, Darren. Yeah, so let's see how that's done. Yeah, so again, it just showcases, I guess, a couple of our tools first, and then I'll show you Auto Insights and how easy it is to provide data from SAP straight into that platform. You can see here, this is actually one of our standard templated workflows, one of well over 100 now that sit on the Alteryx Community Hub. So if you're interested in good starting points, best practice, then they're available to you there if you're existing customers or if you're interested in what we do. Really good accelerators to get you started. This particular one pulls table data largely, and the idea here is what you saw was with that arrow. It's to extract the data from SAP. You can see that's coming from tables. If I just look here, this is the sales header table, so the billing header table. Again, when it's a table, I select just the fields I'm interested in. I can apply filters, and it brings out the data I need. As you can see, I've already run this just for time. What's nice is I can, given that I've got the header data here, I can pass that data downstream into the workflow. But I've also sent it a little different route here to another one of our tools, the ACS filter tool. ACS is Alteryx connector for SAP, by the way, just in case you're curious. Filter tool, well, I'm not giving you any prizes for guessing what that does. It creates filters. It takes the header data, so from the header table, and it will create filters that the line item table will understand. Now you can see these filters here, and they can just be passed in, and out comes the line items that directly relate to the headers that I've picked. That's really surgical. It's really efficient, and obviously makes this very, very performant over and above the super performance you get anyway. Once we've got line items, our segment table data and header data, we can make a join. That's really simple in Alteryx. Just use the join tool, and we've got then the full picture of our billing. We can then do some preparation. This is what Alteryx is all about for sure. So we've tidied things up. For instance, our headers, maybe after a couple of tools in Alteryx, is a standard tools, we can convert to something that's more useful in a tool like Auto Insights, where you've got real language-based texts and insights coming from that system. We can create dates. We can play around with this. We can enhance the data. I've used a few more tables from within SAP. These are text tables. So you can see, for instance, on my customer table, I've got my text for each of my customers. So rather than having a number, I have the actual name of the customer. My Japanese isn't great, but anyway, hopefully a few of you can understand what that's all about. But they can be added into the data set, enhancing that data so it makes it even more useful for any AI solution and also Auto Insights. To push to Auto Insights, we just need a simple tool which points at our instance of Auto Insights and creates a particular data set. Now, if I skip across to Auto Insights, then we can see that data set has landed. And what's cool about it is that's really all that we have to do, because it will build itself a mission, it will build summaries, it will build insights into here. So for instance, if I look at my my data set, Auto Insights itself has analyzed the most important trends. It's looking at the data. We can dig into the data and drill down. We can look at particular values, maybe. We can look at in real text why things have happened. So and look at also, how data is distributed. What's the root cause of particular changes? What are the big changes? Another nice part of Auto Insights, Magic Documents, you can create maybe a presentation based on all of this is automatic, but based on that data, an executive summary of what's going on in there. Very quick to do. For instance, the other thing you can do, which is really cool, is create maybe just a summary, a message for your executive team. If we ask it to generate that message, cross your fingers, it was 10 seconds before, but hopefully it's just as quick this time. So it's taken the data and it created an executive summary about the data set that we've just passed in. So really superb tool, and obviously your Alteryx representatives can really dig into that more. But now we can pass SAP data into it too. It makes it doubly more powerful. Back to Darren.
Yeah, thanks, Ian. As I said before, there the first time I saw a demo of that is quite jaw-dropping. I know the world's moved on with the Open AI and Claude and so on and so forth. That still looks blooming good to me. Great. So let's move on to the next one then, Ian. So as I mentioned partly in the introduction and early on, a lot of what we've talked about so far is all about let's get data out of SAP, those wide range of SAP systems, those different objects with those SAP systems, into the Altrix platform so we can cleanse, blend, transform that data so it's useful for us downstream with our different AI use cases. The last one was a really good example of that. But what about those use cases where, as a result of consuming or utilizing AI, we want to add the right data back into SAP as part of our particular process? So this is something a lot of our customers are starting to take advantage of now. Use cases aren't always massively ambitious in scale, but they're discrete but the value is immense. So let's not forget about the ability to write data back. Yeah, and data written back we could utilize. It could be BAPI. In most cases, use IDOC when we talk about large volumes of data. And yeah, IDOC is still out there, still being used, particularly for migrations of data. It could be the OData services if we look at some of the newer SAP products and the various use cases. Or it could even be Ian's favorite, our RPA tools, which operate at the UI layer. Oh, sorry, I heard him growling there, which customers can find a lot of value from as well. So when we think about these kind of use cases here, let's not think just about getting data into the AI app itself. What about consuming data from the AI app back into the Alteryx platform and then back into SAP? And then you start thinking along these kind of lines, and the possibilities are really quite endless for us. We've got a really nice example to show you now.
Yeah, some fantastic possibilities there with writing back. You mentioned RPA, but it's been around for a long time. That was my pain that you heard some many years ago, spending hours pulling my hair out getting RPA to work. But it's still around and still very valuable, and we can do that directly from within Alteryx. However, moving on, what I'd like to show you now is a couple of demos, a couple of workflows very quickly on our ability to extract data, use some of the AI and actually the computer vision tools within Alteryx to look at the PDFs and documents, and then both to reconcile, to do some work on those documents, or maybe to read the documents and then post. And this is where the write capability comes in. The first workflow here, I've already run these, so I'm just aware of the time. I just want to make sure we leave lots of time for Prashant. But this one, as you probably read at the header there, is a reconciliation workflow. It reconciles the postings that have actually been made within SAP. So this is coming from the tables. This is the bottom route, if you like, down the bottom here. And out of here come the postings that have been made about 3 different documents. Now, if you imagine this is an audit use case, maybe you've randomly chosen these 3, or maybe 100, doesn't matter. But we've pulled the data out that has been posted. Okay, now we want to compare that to what should have been posted. Many times, what happens is obviously that a PDF is created of the particular invoice. It's attached within SAP. If you want to do that now, then you're probably having to go into SAP GUI or otherwise find the document itself, extract that document, and then do a manual like-for-like check on here. This workflow does that all for you. So what the top row does is that extracting of the document. It identifies when those documents exist, and hidden within this little container here, if I can get a right click to work, is a little macro that enables you to do a couple of things. Firstly, it uses a few of our tools that Darren mentioned, and that's the document read tool. So this identifies and extracts documents that have been attached within SAP. Once we've identified those, extracted them from SAP, then the rest is down to Alteryx, and we can use their computer vision tools. So these have, if you like, inbuilt AI to read data from PDFs and pass downstream actual physical values. So it's looking at the PDF, that invoice, and extracting the data from there. The best way to show that is just show you what's happened actually here. So if we're looking here, it's found a couple of these PDFs. If I click on one of them, you see sort of a standard invoice. Okay, you can see the invoice there. However, if we look at what comes out of our little macro here, our little container, we get the line items for this PDF, or 2 of them. We get all the header values from there. So we've got all the details from those extracted from the PDF itself. Of course, if we've got that as data now, then it's not a huge feat to say, hey, let's compare those. And DVW have a reconciliation tool. We actually use this and built this for the data migration tasks and projects that Darren mentioned earlier. But it's really cool for this as well. So what it enables you to do is take 2 data sets, do a join if you like, and then compare field by field where discrepancies lie, and it will output those discrepancies. And so what you get basically is, hey, of those 3 invoices, 1 reconciled perfectly, number 3 reconciled perfectly. However, surprise, surprise, there were some items that were wrong. Maybe there was a vendor mismatch. You can see it's picked up on document number 1 here that there was a vendor mismatch. It should have been Munich and actually it was Hamburg. Even field errors like, hey, the payment terms are wrong, or the document date is wrong. And of course, the classic, hey, they forgot to attach the document in the first place. So lots you can do there with obviously extracting data from SAP, but within Alteryx, there's so much you can do that's powerful and useful. Using the same sort of principle, but slightly tipped on the head here, what we can also do is pass to SAP, and this is to what Darren was just talking about, the ability to write into SAP. So what we can do is we can pass into Alteryx those PDFs, the actual physical invoices as they land. We can use those OCR, the computer vision tools of Alteryx, to do the heavy lifting, to use the AI that's inbuilt there to extract the data that's necessary. We can push that downstream, and as you can see, for instance, from the documents I've passed in, here are the line items that I've picked up. Here's some other data in terms of headers, and then I can pass that into segments. You see, this is just a little preparation to use in our BAPI tool. Now, this is the DVW Analytics BAPI tool that enables you to write using standard SAP technology into SAP. And basically, we pass in the correct information. It writes into SAP and posts those invoices for you. So an end-to-end process there, using AI, using right technology to streamline a process that can be very manual. This one didn't quite work, as you'll see down below, because what's nice about BAPI is it gives you information back. Just as if you were running this on a T code, it will tell you, hey, it posted well, but it also tells you the bad news as well. And obviously, this isn't a bad thing, because what we can now do is we can build into our workflow an error management process to send them maybe an email to the correct person to say, hey, sort this out. Okay, so at that point, we're going to have a slight change. I'm going to pass now on to our guest speaker today, Prashant, who's going to take you through the AI piece from an Alteryx point of view. Prashant, if you want to take the screen, it's all yours.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Ian. Hopefully everyone can see my slide. That was great, right? That was great to see all the data from all different kinds of SAP objects being able to read from and then being able to write back to as well, irrespective of which version of SAP you are on, whether you are on BW, whether you are on HANA, or whether you are on SAC, right? So it was great to see those capabilities in terms of being able to extract that data and then be able to use that data as part of a workflow, do various steps with respect to that, embed AI in terms of utilizing AI to clean up the data, match the schemas, and then get the output. Now, if you were to look to take it a step further, right? So essentially, we've looked at a lot of these use cases where we get the data out, we prepare it ultimately for human consumption. So essentially, humans being able to read through various reports, whether it's through Auto Insights or we read it through various reports, whether it's in terms of Excels, PDFs, or other BI tools as well. But AI takes it a bit step further, right? And AI operates in a different way. Like specifically, I'm referring to here large language models. Large language models essentially are very good with unstructured data. We all know that they are not quite so good with structured data. So when it comes to being able to make sense of tabular data, that's not something in the wheelhouse of the LLM to be able to do a particularly good job without some help, right? That is where Alteryx comes in. So with the help of the DVW connectors, once you have extracted the information from the various SAP systems, you can then use Alteryx in terms of making it AI readable. And when I say AI readable, what I mean by that is either in terms of being able to chunk it, right? Like chunking the data down and vectorization, which are some of the things which need to be done with the data in order for the large language model to be effectively able to use that information to provide a response back and sort of minimizing and reducing the hallucination with that aspect, right? So that concept in terms of being able to do that is what we call as the Alteryx AI Data Clearinghouse. Essentially, it's a mechanism, as you saw with respect to the drag and drop interface, which lets you embed your business context into the workflow, business context in terms of business rules and other capabilities as well, prepare them within a governed setup and make it ready for various AI applications and agents, right? With respect to how that is then consumed, there are two main patterns which we see with respect to how it's consumed, right? The first one is essentially in terms of getting the data from SAP, as you can see on the left-hand side, using the DVW connectors, getting it into Alteryx One, and then doing the processing, the cleanup of the data, and applying the business rules, and then loading it into the vector database, which usually forms part of the RAG pipeline. For loading it into the vector database, you need to do things like chunking and having vectorized embeddings and stuff. You could also pass it as part of context windows. There are some models which are out there, and Alteryx has the capability to connect to any of the large language models, or indeed small language models or private models which you might have within your enterprise. Alteryx can provide that same information as part of the context window to the LLM, and then it can then be used by the LLM to provide you with an appropriate response. The way what we call this is sort of a batch mode. And just to bring it to life, I'll just switch over to the screen. Essentially, as you have seen from Ian in the various demos, you can connect to the various SAP data, you can do various preparation steps, and then you can load it into the vector database by doing the chunking and embeddings. In this case, I have loaded the data into Elastic, right? So here is sort of the Elastic interface, and here I can come in and ask questions of the data. So let me copy paste one of the questions I've had from before. So I'll sort of say, what are the trends in the over the last 5 years, right? So essentially what it's doing is whatever data which has been extracted from SAP and the various embeddings have been added with respect the vectorization which has happened with respect to that, adding sort of the embeddings with respect to that, and then you will hopefully, if the demo gods are with me, you will sort of see a response generated as well in terms of how the trends are with respect to that. So you can see the sort of the summary come up, right? You can see that for various years, because I asked it for the various trends, it comes up with the various trends in terms of what the information was for November. And it's the same data set which Ian used in one of the demos in terms of the sales and distribution data. So you can see that information from a different lens. So you can then also see observations about the increasing net values, what the fluctuations were, and high value transactions as well, right? So this is all information which has been gleaned from the data which we have brought out from SAP, and hence sort of the end decision makers, business users can consume this information to draw insights and make decisions, right? So you can ask further questions of this as well. In the interest of time, I'll probably pause here for this particular example. So this is one pattern where you are getting the data in from SAP using Alteryx in terms of doing the chunking and embedding, loading it into a vector database, and then that data being used as part of a RAG pipeline to generate these insights which you have just seen. So that's one pattern. And sorry, but one more thing which I should mention here is, in this case, we are using ChatGPT or sort of ChatGPT 4.0, but equally you could use other models in terms of Olama, for example, which you could bring in your own small language model, or a model which is sitting on your machine or on your server, which is trained on your own enterprise data as well. So you have that flexibility to bring that data in as well. The second pattern is essentially where these are some screenshots which I had, so just in case the demo gods were not with me. This is sort of the second pattern, right? So in the previous instance, it was more of a batch mode where you could periodically load the vector database with data which is coming in from SAP. In this particular instance, if it were, this sort of flips it around, right? So the whole idea is it gets initiated from the point where the user is asking a question. At this point, like we said, large language models are good with unstructured data, but not really with structured data. So if the data is not available, there is a tendency to hallucinate. The workaround with respect to that is something called as the model context protocol. So actually, it makes more sense when you look at it backwards. It's a protocol that provides context for the model, right? In that scenario, what it provides the large language model is the capability to be able to invoke the workflows, which are workflows to get the latest data, right? So if someone was looking at sort of the sales information, they can't rely on, if the batch load has happened a week back, they can't rely on a week old information. They might want the latest and greatest information as of right now, which is why we call this mode the online mode. So the idea within this is the LLM being able to invoke various Alteryx workflows, similar to the one which you have seen Ian and Darren demonstrate, and get the latest information from SAP to be able to build that view up, right? And sort of the example with respect to that is we have built an MCP server on top of Alteryx. We can ask it various questions. So in this case, I've sort of asked, are there specific products or product groups that have consistently driven high volume of data? So it's then interacting. So I have asked this question on ChatGPT. It's then triggering the Alteryx workflow using the MCP workflow, and it gets me the insight in terms of providing me a summary in terms of which product group accounts for a large percentage. In this case, A001 accounts for 99.99% of the orders, what the average rough value is. You did see some of the Japanese suppliers within the data set, so you weren't surprised for you to see yen in there. And it gives you a summary and it provides a detailed analysis, right? All of this information is being brought from SAP using DVW by Alteryx, right? And then it's then able to provide you with the latest information. So essentially, it gives you the ability to take the AI to the SAP data rather than bring the SAP data to AI, right? Which was the previous approach. So these are sort of some of the design patterns which we have seen our customers use in terms of how they are using the SAP data in the context of AI, right? So just to summarize, essentially it's looking at utilizing SAP data in a batch mode as part of a RAG pipeline or providing it as part of the context window. The second possibility is essentially where you are bringing the LLMs to the SAP data, which is using the model context protocol wrapper, which we have built on top of Alteryx. With that, on to the final slide. Back to you, Darren.
Well, Prashant, AI may eat the world, but it's going to be an interesting couple of years as we get there. Crikey.
Yes.
Thank you for that. That was excellent. Really cool stuff. So guys, just to finish, firstly, we've been asked a couple of questions in the chat. How can I get materials? Can I get a link to the workflow templates and recording? Yes, absolutely. The follow-up email a couple of days after today's event, you'll get links to all of those. So thank you for asking, and also thank you for attending. Rebecca, I'll contact you about your question separately. It's sort of slightly off of the main drag there. So follow-ups. If you have any questions about Altrix's AI offering, Prashant is the man. His contact details are there. Please contact him. He knows far more than he should, I think, to be honest with you, but bravo. For the Altrix and SAP piece, please contact myself or Ian. We'd love to give you guys who aren't currently using the software a 30-day trial, perhaps try it out with some of the Altrix AI capabilities. And I think what we've seen here with the demonstrations today, there are different levels at which you actually may want to interact or utilize AI. I mean, for me, the machine vision there's AI there. It's not ChatGPT, but there's that there. The auto insights still demos great today, and then some of these later things that Prashant was showing us. I think the possible use cases unlocks are quite exceptional, profound. So for any Altrix AI related, please contact Prashant. His contact details are there. For anything SAP and Altrix related, please contact myself and Ian. We'd love to invite you to take a 30-day trial. Our team will support you and assist you throughout that process. So all I say is let's close it now. Thank you very much for attention, guys. Really appreciate it. And good day to you.